The NFL has seen its share of legends, but few ever controlled the game quite like Peyton Manning. Known for dissecting defenses with surgical precision, he often left opponents scrambling for solutions. But some players actually did have an answer. And now, at 48, Manning is pulling back the curtain on the rare few who truly tested him. These weren't just tough opponents, they were the battles that helped define his career. But before we dive into that, let's rewind to where it all began. Peyton Manning was born on March 24, 1976, in New Orleans, Louisiana, the middle son of Archie and Olivia Manning. Football was already in his bloodline. His father, Archie, had been a star quarterback at Ole Miss before playing in the NFL throughout the 1970s and early 80s with teams like the New Orleans Saints and Minnesota Vikings. After retiring, Archie stayed close to the game as a radio announcer for the Saints. From an early age at Isidore Newman High School, Peyton tried his hand at basketball and baseball, but it didn't take long for football to win his heart. By his sophomore year, he was already the starting quarterback, with his brother Cooper catching passes as his wide receiver. The duo lit up the field, driving Newman all the way to the state semifinals. Peyton's high school career was nothing short of remarkable. Over 7,200 passing yards, 92 touchdowns, and the honor of being named Gatorade National High School Player of the Year. With numbers like that, everyone assumed he'd follow in his father Archie's footsteps and suit up for Ole Miss. But in a move that stunned fans and alumni alike, Peyton chose Tennessee instead. Later, he explained that he wanted a challenge, a chance to step out of his family's shadow and prove himself on his own terms. The start of his college career came suddenly. In 1994, Tennessee's starting quarterback tore his ACL, and the backup future MLB star Todd Helton also went down with an injury. That left the third stringer, Peyton Manning, to step in. He seized the moment, leading the Volunteers to a 7-1 record as a starter and a decisive 45-23 Gator Bowl win over Virginia Tech. From there, the Volunteers became his team. With Manning at quarterback, Tennessee claimed back-to-back Citrus Bowl victories in 1995 and 1996 and reached the Orange Bowl in 1997. That season, Peyton led the team to the SEC Eastern Division Championship. Over 4 years, he rewrote the record books, setting 33 school passing records and becoming Tennessee's all-time leader with more than 11,000 yards, 863 completions, and 89 touchdowns. His name also appeared all over the SEC record lists, thanks to his consistency and accuracy. Heading into his senior year, many believed he would win the Heisman Trophy. Instead, it went to Michigan's Charles Woodson, though Manning still collected a shelf of honors, including the Davy O'Brien Award, the Johnny Unitas Award, and the Sullivan Award for Best Amateur Athlete in the country. After wrapping up one of the most decorated college careers in Tennessee football history, Peyton Manning entered the NFL draft as one of the most sought-after prospects in the country. But even with all that success behind him, draft day brought real uncertainty. Instead of breaking him, though, it fueled him. And that determination came through loud and clear in his pre-draft meetings with NFL teams. During one meeting with the Indianapolis Colts, who held the #1 overall pick, Manning made a bold declaration. If they passed on him, he promised he would make them regret it for the next 15 years. It wasn't arrogance. It was the confidence of a quarterback who believed his preparation, film study, and discipline would translate into victories. Manning already saw potential in the Colts roster. He admired wide receiver Marvin Harrison's precision and work ethic, and he trusted general manager Bill Polian's vision for building a contender. When the Colts handed in their draft card, Peyton Manning's name was called first overall. The franchise had made a defining decision, one that would change both Manning's career and the team's identity. His rookie year was far from smooth. Manning threw a league-high 28 interceptions, and the Colts stumbled to a 3-13 record. Still, his talent was undeniable. He finished third in passing yards and ranked among the top 5 in touchdown passes, flashing the potential that would soon pay off. The following offseason, Indianapolis reshaped its roster. They traded star running back Marshall Faulk to the Rams, replacing him in the draft with Edgerrin James. It was a gamble that paid off. James outshined Heisman winner Ricky Williams, earning Rookie of the Year honors, while Williams struggled in New Orleans. On defense, the Colts added key names like Cornelius Bennett, Chad Bratzky, and rookie Mike Peterson, transforming a unit that had been a liability. In Manning's second season, everything finally came together. He cut down on the interceptions, piled up over 4,100 passing yards, and led the Colts to one of the greatest turnarounds the league had ever seen, going from 3-13 to 13-3. The biggest single-season improvement in NFL history. Manning earned the first of his 14 Pro Bowl nods, and the Colts returned to the playoffs for the first time in 3 years. But the magic didn't last. Their postseason ended quickly with a loss to the Tennessee Titans, who went on to reach the Super Bowl. The next 2 seasons brought more frustration. A wild-card loss to the Dolphins in 2000, followed by a rough 2001 campaign, derailed by an injury to star running back Edgerrin James. The Colts stumbled to a 6-10 finish, and head coach Jim Mora was shown the door after butting heads with management over defensive changes. Into that gap stepped Tony Dungy, a calm, steady presence coming off his run in Tampa Bay. With him at the helm, the Colts became a model of consistency, making the playoffs year after year and earning a reputation as one of the league's most dangerous teams. But while the regular season brought plenty of wins, the postseason told a different story, and out of that struggle, a fierce new rivalry was about to be born. On September 30th, 2001, a young Tom Brady stepped onto the field for his very first NFL start. At the time, hardly anyone knew his name. He had spent his rookie season and the beginning of the next riding the bench, and after all, he wasn't exactly a prized pick. He'd been drafted 199th overall in 2000. Lining up across from him that night was Manning, already a superstar and former #1 draft pick. What happened next shocked everyone. Brady and the Patriots didn't just beat Manning and the Colts, they crushed them 44-13. That night lit the spark for a rivalry one NFL writer would later call for the ages. And in those early years, it was Brady and New England who held the upper hand, dominating whenever the two teams went head-to-head. The rivalry only intensified in the postseason. Between them, Brady and Manning would go on to combine for 10 Super Bowl appearances and 7 MVP awards. Brady was the first to rise, seemingly out of nowhere, guiding the Patriots to a championship in 2002. Manning, on the other hand, continued to stumble in the playoffs, including a devastating 41-0 loss to the Jets in 2003. When the two finally met in the playoffs that same season, Brady, backed by the league's top defense, shut Manning down with a 24-14 victory. The following year, it was déjà vu. In the 2004 divisional round, Brady and the Patriots once again ended the Colts' run with a 20-3 win, exposing Indy's shaky defense, which ranked just 19th in the regular season. But that same year, Manning and his favorite target, Marvin Harrison, rewrote the record books. Manning threw 49 touchdown passes, an NFL record at the time, with 15 of them going to Harrison. By the end of Harrison's career, the duo had set marks for most completions, touchdowns, and yards between a quarterback and a receiver. In response, the Colts invested heavily in defense. They added veteran Corey Simon up front, drafted Marlon Jackson and Kelvin Hayden, and watched safety Bob Sanders blossom into an All-Pro. By 2005, Indianapolis had the second-ranked defense in the league. That season, they started red hot, winning their first 13 games and finishing 14-2. But momentum slipped late in the year, and after earning a first-round bye, they stumbled against the Pittsburgh Steelers in the playoffs. Pittsburgh controlled the game early, though the Colts nearly rallied in the fourth quarter. A last-minute field goal could have saved their season, but Mike Vanderjagt's 46-yard attempt missed wide right. Just like that, the Colts were eliminated, and Vanderjagt would never wear a Colts uniform again. As the 2006 season kicked off, Peyton Manning carried a reputation that was both brilliant and frustrating. He had all the stats in the world, but his playoff record sat at 5-7, and critics questioned whether he could ever win it all. To make things even tougher, the Colts lost star running back Edgerrin James, who bolted to the Arizona Cardinals after yet another Pro Bowl year. But instead of crumbling, Indianapolis adapted. Dominic Rhodes and rookie Joseph Adai stepped in seamlessly, and the running game actually got stronger. By the end of the regular season, the Colts boasted the league's second-best offense, finished 12-4, and looked primed for another shot at postseason glory. After victories against the Chiefs and Ravens, another classic AFC championship matchup with Tom Brady loomed. Early on, it looked like heartbreak all over again. New England jumped ahead 21-3 after a pick six by Asante Samuel, but Manning engineered one of the greatest comebacks in playoff history, rallying the Colts to a 38-34 win sealed by Marlon Jackson's interception in the final minute. That comeback sent Indianapolis to Super Bowl 41, but once they got there, the script didn't start the way Manning had hoped. Devin Hester took the opening kickoff to the house, and suddenly, the Colts were already chasing. Manning, though, answered back almost immediately, firing a deep ball to Reggie Wayne that set the tone. From that point on, Indy settled in, with 190 rushing yards split between Adai and Rhodes, plus a steady leg from Adam Vinatieri. The Colts pulled away for a 29-17 win. At last, Manning had his first Super Bowl title, but the years that followed weren't as smooth. Back-to-back playoff losses to the Chargers cut short the 2007 and 2008 seasons. Then came the end of an era. Marvin Harrison moved on and Tony Dungy retired. The Colts reloaded under Jim Caldwell, starting 2009 with a perfect 14-0 run that carried them all the way to Super Bowl 44 against Drew Brees and the Saints. This time, though, the magic ran out. A gutsy onside kick shifted momentum, and Tracy Porter's pick six slammed the door on a 31-17 defeat. In 2010, Manning reached his 9th straight Pro Bowl, but the Colts lost a narrow wildcard game to the Jets. It turned out to be his final game with Indianapolis. After signing a massive contract in 2011, Manning underwent his third neck surgery in less than 2 years, sidelining him for the entire season. His recovery was grueling, leaving him with nerve damage and numb fingertips that forced him to relearn his throwing mechanics. Close friends like Todd Helton recalled those early workouts when Manning barely had any strength in his arm, but his relentless work ethic kept him going. Without him, the Colts crumbled to a 2-14 season, landing the first overall pick in the 2012 draft. With Stanford standout Andrew Luck waiting and serious questions about Manning's health, the franchise made a heartbreaking decision, parting ways with the quarterback who had defined their identity for over a decade. The Colts turned the page with a new face of the franchise, while Manning took his talents west to Denver, joining forces with Hall of Famer turned GM John Elway, a man who understood better than most how to chase glory in the twilight of a career. From day one in Denver, Manning made his mission clear. He wasn't there to rebuild, he was there to win immediately. The Broncos gave him something no other team offered. They agreed to merge his old Indianapolis playbook with Denver's system, creating a hybrid offense tailored to him. That kind of trust gave Manning the spark he needed for the next chapter of his career. The new partnership didn't waste time making noise. Manning's Week 1 performance on Sunday Night Football was a statement win over the Steelers, but early struggles followed, with the Broncos dropping 3 of their next 4 games. Then came a turning point. Down 24-0 to the Chargers, Manning led a furious comeback, scoring 35 unanswered points. That victory kicked off an 11-game winning streak, catapulting the Broncos to a 13-3 record and the AFC's top seed. Manning was back in MVP form, earning first-team All-Pro honors and Comeback Player of the Year. The postseason, however, ended in heartbreak. The Broncos fell in double overtime to the Ravens, crushing Manning's hopes of becoming the first quarterback to win Super Bowls with 2 different franchises. But instead of fading, Manning came back stronger in 2013. He opened the season by tying an NFL record with 7 touchdown passes against the defending champion Ravens. By season's end, he had shattered single-season records for both passing yards and touchdowns, finishing with 5,477 yards and 55 touchdowns. It was a season for the ages, capped by his record 5th MVP award and a trip to Super Bowl 48. That Super Bowl, however, turned into a nightmare. Facing Seattle's fearsome Legion of Boom, Manning and the Broncos were dismantled from the very first snap. A botched center exchange that rolled into the end zone for a safety. What followed was one of the most lopsided defeats in Super Bowl history. Seattle's defense overwhelmed Denver's record-setting offense, forcing turnovers, crushing receivers, and completely erasing the deep passing game. The Seahawks rolled to a 43-8 win, delivering the franchise its first Lombardi trophy. Manning's stat line that night, 34 completions, 280 yards, 1 touchdown, looked respectable on paper, but it was hollow against 2 interceptions, a lost fumble, and constant pressure. From Cam Chancellor's early interception to Percy Harvin's kickoff return touchdown that opened the second half, Seattle's dominance was relentless. By the time Jermaine Kearse danced into the end zone in the third quarter, the rout was sealed. For Manning, the loss was a harsh reminder of how quickly things can collapse under the Super Bowl spotlight. At 37, carrying a 1-2 record in championship games, the old questions about his legacy came roaring back. And the fact that his younger brother Eli already had 2 rings only stirred the debate even more. Manning's story wasn't finished, but right then, his pursuit of redemption had hit its toughest setback yet. Now, the 2014 season looked like it was going to be another Manning special. Through the first 9 games, he fired off 29 touchdowns, keeping him on pace for a jaw-dropping 50-plus. But then came a leg injury, and suddenly the numbers weren't the same. The Broncos still managed a strong 12-4 record, but by the time they faced the Colts in the divisional round, it was clear Manning wasn't himself. Denver fell 24-13 and retirement whispers started circling. Manning wasn't ready to walk away just yet. After some reflection, he came back for the 2015 season, determined to give it one last run. He wasn't the same physical force, but his football IQ and years of experience were still unmatched. He opened the year proving his point, orchestrating a 17-play drive in Week 1 that chewed up 10 minutes and helped the Broncos edge the Ravens. A week later, he outdueled the Chiefs with 3 touchdown passes and no picks. By Week 3, he was sharp again, guiding Denver past Detroit with another efficient performance. Then came November 15th, 2015. Manning broke Brett Favre's all-time passing yards record, but on the same day, he suffered a plantar fascia tear and endured the worst game of his career. 5 completions, 4 interceptions, and a 0.0 passer rating in a loss to the Chiefs. He was benched, and many thought his career was over. 7 weeks later, Manning made a dramatic return, stepping off the bench to lead the Broncos past the Chargers. That comeback secured Denver the AFC's top seed and set the stage for one final playoff run. The Broncos beat the Steelers in the divisional round. Then came the showdown everyone wanted, Manning versus Brady in the AFC Championship. With Denver's ferocious defense suffocating New England, Manning did just enough to win, improving to 3-1 against Brady in conference title games and punching his ticket to a final Super Bowl. Super Bowl 50 was billed as Manning's last dance, but the real stars were wearing orange on defense. The Broncos smothered Cam Newton and the high-powered Panthers, forcing turnovers and never letting the MVP get comfortable. Manning, now more of a steady game manager than a gunslinger, completed only 13 passes for 141 yards, threw a pick, and was sacked 5 times. But he made the key plays when needed, including a 2-point conversion that sealed the win. Denver triumphed 24-10, and Manning became the only quarterback ever to lead 2 different franchises to Super Bowl victories. As the confetti rained down, Manning stopped short of officially announcing his retirement, but his words gave it away. He wasn't talking about next season or future games. Instead, he mentioned family, a cold beer, and a few words of wisdom from Tony Dungy. Even those closest to him, his wife, his teammates, knew what it meant. This wasn't the voice of a quarterback gearing up for one more run. It was a legend gently closing the final chapter of his story. And the truth is, sports rarely hand out perfect endings. Michael Jordan, for instance, didn't get to walk away as a Chicago Bull at the peak of the dynasty. His career wound down with a forgettable stint on the Washington Wizards. And Mark Spitz, the Olympic icon who once owned the pool with 7 gold medals in 1972, attempted a comeback in Barcelona 2 decades later, only to leave barely a ripple. Peyton Manning, however, had the rare chance to be the exception. After an extraordinary 18-year career, he stepped away from the game in March 2016 as a champion. He went out with a 2nd Super Bowl ring and a retirement speech that carried the unmistakable Southern drawl of Archie Manning's oldest son. For many, Peyton was the perfect American football idol, polite, sharp, and, as it turned out, a sponsor's dream. Even as his playing days wound down, he was still pulling in millions not only from the Broncos, but also from endorsement deals with Buick, Gatorade, Nationwide Insurance, and Papa John's Pizza. franchises he even owned around Denver. This wasn't a Hollywood script, though. It felt more like a novel. An aging warrior lifted one final time by his defense, yet his career stood apart in ways no fiction could capture. Manning became the only quarterback to start in multiple Super Bowls for two different teams and the only one to win titles with both. He retired holding the NFL records for career passing touchdowns with 539 and career passing yards with 71,940, and he tied Brett Favre for the most quarterback wins at 186. Tributes poured in. Broncos executive John Elway, himself a Hall of Famer, praised Manning for being everything the organization hoped for and more, both on the field and in the community. Head coach Gary Kubiak spoke about the privilege of coaching him, calling his preparation and work ethic unmatched. Even Commissioner Roger Goodell weighed in, describing Manning as a legendary competitor whose love for the game made him the face of football for an entire generation. The league, he said, would always be grateful for Manning's impact. But what made him truly unique was how he reinvented the quarterback position. Manning's mind was as dangerous as his arm. His constant study of defenses forced the rest of the league to adapt, pushing defensive coordinators to disguise their schemes in ways they hadn't before. Former quarterback Tim Hasselbeck explained that while audibles existed long before Manning, he elevated them into an art form, marching to the line, diagnosing the defense, and flipping the play into something unstoppable. For Manning, every defense had a weakness, and finding it was like solving a puzzle. He spent hours dissecting film the way a financial advisor studies markets, then tore apart opponents on Sundays. His Omaha calls became a pop culture moment, leaving fans excited and defenders exasperated. Most importantly, he challenged the long-held belief that passing was inherently risky. He showed that with intelligence, preparation, and precision, the passing game could dominate. His greatest rival, Tom Brady, summed it up best. Manning didn't just play the game, he changed it forever, and in doing so, he made everyone around him better. However, after his storybook ending on the football field, capping his career with a Super Bowl win in his final game, Peyton Manning suddenly found himself in the middle of a storm. The spotlight shifted when Al Jazeera America aired a report claiming human growth hormone had been shipped to his wife during his recovery from neck surgery in 2011. Manning didn't hold back in his response, dismissing the allegations as both outrageous and deeply insulting. The claims originated from Charlie Sly, a man who appeared in an undercover video with an Al Jazeera reporter. Sly alleged that Manning received HGH, but later backtracked, admitting he had fabricated the story. He said he had been speaking to Liam Collins, a British hurdler posing as a potential business partner, and never expected the comments to be taken seriously. Despite this retraction, the story still went public, leaving Manning angry and disgusted. Manning defended himself forcefully in interviews, insisting he had never taken performance-enhancing drugs. He acknowledged visiting the Geyer Institute in 2011 for a hyperbaric chamber treatment, but rejected any suggestion of using HGH. He also defended his wife, pointing out that her medical treatments were private and had nothing to do with him. For Manning, the entire ordeal was trash and garbage, and he remained baffled that a retracted story could gain such traction. The controversy stirred strong reactions. Prominent figures like CBS's Jim Nantz dismissed the report entirely, labeling it a non-story. But with Manning's immense popularity, the scrutiny didn't end there. Attention soon shifted to an older controversy from his college years at the University of Tennessee. In 1996, Jamie Nawright, a former athletic trainer, accused Manning of a disturbing incident during a routine ankle examination. She alleged that he pressed his genitals against her face, an account she reported to a crisis center hours later. At the time, she did not publicly name Manning, fearing for her career and suspecting a cover-up. Manning, however, insisted it was nothing more than a juvenile prank, claiming he had been mooning a teammate. That explanation didn't satisfy everyone. Malcolm Saxon, the teammate Manning claimed to be joking with, contradicted Manning's version in a sworn statement. Nawright eventually settled with the university for $300,000, though she later resurfaced the allegations in a 2002 lawsuit after Manning and his father described the incident in their book. Court documents revealed her distress at the time, along with notes from her supervisor urging her not to go to the press or police. Defenders of Manning argued that her story shifted over the years, pointing out inconsistencies, but others noted that she showed visible signs of trauma immediately after the incident, which didn't align with the casual explanation of a harmless prank. The truth, as with many controversies, remains clouded. What is certain is that Peyton Manning's legacy has always been complicated. On the field, he was a legend, a record breaker, and a two-time Super Bowl champion. Off the field, he carried the weight of scandals, some disproven, others unresolved, that challenged the clean-cut image fans wanted to believe in.